I'm Sandra Rupp. Welcome to my Bilderberg coverage for 2019. You've got to have an intellectual curiosity to get invited to Bilderberg. Jorge Brenda is there, of course, president of World Economic Forum. Jorge, we need to get more women to World Economic Forum. It only went up 1% this year. Martin Wolf is back at the FT, and we love the FT because we have appeared in the Financial Times Alphaville. I put on a little spritz of Hermes perfume, and we're ready to go. So I'm dedicating this annual Bilderberg video to my dear dad, James Rupp. I'm Sandra Rupp, and I was placed on the Thinkers 50 Guru Radar list for the world's top business thinkers. Welcome to the art of 21st century career navigation. We're ready for Davos. I'd like to give a warm welcome to my viewers around the globe. Welcome to the #1 happiest, healthiest city in the USA. An interesting name on the list is the first time for the CEO. Is Satya Nadella. I noticed Dominic Barton is there. I want to mention him because he's been very high up at McKinsey. I've read a lot of his articles. Apparently he's from Canada. There's a CEO of Goldman Sachs International who's attending, Richard Nod. So AXA, the insurance company. I saw a number of political people on the list and a lot of people from Silicon Valley. They didn't release where it was going to be until about 2 days before. The CEO of Credit Suisse will be there. Of course, Peter Thiel will be there, and the chairman of HSBC. They do go by Chatham House rules, so you're not allowed to talk about what was said in the meeting. You can talk in generalities. You can't make attribution of what someone said. Henry Kravis, of course, is always there. The Tikchik Narrows Lodge is in Alaska, probably the most famous place to go salmon fishing. Dad used to go there every year. And one year, it turned out that Henry Kravis was there with his former wife. All kinds of interesting things that happened at Bilderberg. But let's get to the hot topics. So, of course, Henry Kissinger will be attending. He's really the senior statesman there. And some are saying that Eric Schmidt is kind of jockeying for a position possibly to be his successor as the senior statesman there. There were two big executives who were paid something like $130 million, and that created a huge stir among the women of Google. Then they tried to penalize the women who organized the Me Too event. Freedom of speech is why my ancestors came from the Netherlands and the UK to this country, the United States. So we're not going to go backwards. And you also need more political diversity at Google ASAP. Anna Botan is a very well-regarded chairman now of Banco Santander. And I've heard really wonderful things about her from my friends who live in Europe and Naples, Florida. I see Audrey Azoulay, who is the Director General of UNESCO, a French politician. We have the Secretary General of NATO attending. The King of the Netherlands is there because Bilderberg was originally, the first Bilderberg was in the Netherlands at the Bilderberg Hotel. Jessica Uhl will be there. She's the CFO of Royal Dutch Shell. There's an MP of the Green Party from the Netherlands. Melody Hobson attending again. Mary Kay Henry is attending from the USA. She's actually the first woman to lead a labor union, and she's Service Employees International Union. That's one thing we're going to talk about is the ladies of Bilderberg. I was a history major in addition to my top school MBA. I also studied at Oxford, by the way. The key topics for discussion are, this year, #1, a stable strategic order. They're talking about their version of global governance. It was the former president of International for Goldman Sachs that was very involved in this international migration strategy set by the United Nations. I always thought that was incredibly controversial that a male banker was trying to decide what would happen on migration, because that means it's about the money as opposed to taking care of the women and children in our own countries. Those will be interesting topics. We've had Brexit, the election of Donald Trump, the yellow vests in France, and the women have not been safe in Sweden. Louise Arbour, who's from Canada, appears to be a special representative of the United Nations Secretary General for international migration. You can't just have open borders. That's never going to work, especially for the women and children of a country. We have a problem with lack of inclusive economic growth. We're just going to have first world countries become third world countries if we don't do this in a stable, strategic fashion. And that will require female input for sure. I call it the yin and yang of leadership. Question 2, what next for Europe? There's the EU. The elections just took place. Of course, the people who voted for Brexit now have formed the Brexit Party. If they lose Britain, that's a big blow to the EU. They are losing Britain because the people voted for Brexit. It's a democracy, that's very clear. And that's kind of a blow to some of the more liberal people at Bilderberg. But we do know that now that we have President Trump in office, we are having other views represented, although Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, who's attending Bilderberg this year, is probably more on the liberal side of things. But we have Mike Pompeo, who's there as Secretary of Defense. And there's a lot that needs to be done to mobilize the women in the United States. There hasn't been enough investment by Silicon Valley venture capitalists. Number 3 is climate change and sustainability. This seems to be a hot topic lately. Sustainability needs to turn from sustainability into flourishing business. You can watch my other videos. Climate change should not just be about the Paris Agreement, because Americans view that as a socialist agreement. We protect the environment through conservation. Your carbon footprint is also real. You don't need to travel on those planes. Patricia Barbizet is coming back. I noticed that she's now on the board of Kering Group. They're going to be talking about sustainability, and fashion is a big polluter. It's the second largest polluter. I've told them at Fashion for Good and the Copenhagen Fashion Summit, you really need more creative women involved. Women who love fashion, women who can tell you about style and color and textures and patterns. Because most of the sustainable fashion is either too expensive or we wouldn't wear it. Number 4 is China. First of all, as it relates to some of the censorship, there's a lot of controversy around Google and what they're doing with China. Journalists like Charlie Skelton and a number of others, Press for Truth, they're all very good at what they do. Sometimes when people step outside the hotel, they talk with people. People were much more buttoned up at the airport this year, and so we need to make sure that we allow people to speak about their views on however they want to vote and not silence them. It's important for all voices to be heard. And I will fight for that until the day I die. We've got Russia on the list. Now, Russia, of course, the major topic there would be, was there election meddling? This whole dossier was very controversial about Trump. We know that now he's been cleared of that, but the Democrats in the United States want to kind of hold on to that. He's turning the economy around in a very favorable way, especially for women entrepreneurs. They're starting to think about what can they do politically here, because I like an example is Stacey Abrams. She has talked about wanting to possibly run as a senator. They've talked about putting her as a VP on the ticket with Joe Biden. She spoke at the Council on Foreign Relations. While she's an articulate person, I see her as someone who's being groomed by the elite, specifically the limousine liberal elite, for their purposes. So Stacey, I'd love to talk to you more about that, because I think we would have a lot to discuss from different political viewpoints of the realities of what's going on in terms of how we need to get to inclusive economic growth. And that will be not just through liberal policies. Now, last year there was the former governor of Colorado invited John Hickenlooper, as you may recall, to Bilderberg. And he's declared, I believe, his candidacy for the presidency on the Democratic side. Hasn't been a ton of hoopla around it. It seems like Biden is more of the favorite, but I don't think Biden will beat Trump. And he's got all these problems around touching women, which even back in 1991 was inappropriate. So if you're doing that in the 90s, Joe, you needed a female executive coach. All right, the future of capitalism is right here on the list. And that is going to be an interesting one, because we have all these different versions of capitalism. We have conscious capitalism. We have capitalism where you can make money at any cost. That's not going to go over so well anymore. So if we integrate things like sustainability and flourishing business into the future of capitalism, it is going to be more of a conscious capitalism. It's also going to be a capitalism that allows women to get investors for their businesses. Because if we look at a lot of businesses in the US and in Europe, 90% of female-founded companies are one-person businesses. I mean, this makes no sense. We've got top school MBAs founding businesses. Sarah Mazur is attending. Now, she's an investor. We see Megan McArdle, who is now a columnist for the Washington Post, a libertarian perspective, so that was nice to see. In fact, David Brooks has called her one of the most influential bloggers on the right. On the Democratic side, we have Claire McCaskill attending. She's a former senator and now an analyst at NBC News. The Brexit side of things, which comes up on the list here as number 7, Andrew Adonis has been invited, Lord Adonis. He voted Remain. He wants a second vote, the people's second vote. This is not going to happen. Okay, this is democracy. Boris Johnson's going to be the next prime minister. I've already predicted that. Some say Boris Johnson may make an appearance at Bilderberg this year. He's not on the official list, but sometimes there are politicians who do show up unannounced. We'll find out, we hope. I would have liked to have seen a lot more Brexiteers on this list. That would be my feedback to Henri de Castries, who organizes this. Number 8, the ethics of artificial intelligence. Now, I'm really happy to see the ethics included here, because this is where you have to have a lot of women chiming in. There are a lot of problems with creating robots that are all designed by male engineers. I don't want to have robots take over the humanity and the people. Second of all, I don't want robots made for men. I mean, I open an instruction booklet when I buy an appliance, and it's often written by a male engineer, and I can't understand it. It's like when I bought my new video camera from Logitech. We're different on personality type, which Adam Grant is at Bilderberg this year. Adam is a professor at Wharton. He's been involved in Thinkers 50 as well. Adam and I disagree on personality testing. He doesn't like the Myers-Briggs test created by a mother and daughter team. I do. And so I just want to say that it's important to have different points of view at Bilderberg. So if Adam Grant is invited, I should definitely be invited, because you want to have the intuitive and feeling woman at Bilderberg, okay? The weaponization of social media. Now, social media, as we know, is the way a lot of business is done. It's the way journalism is now done, the media, new media. It's the way you meet a lot of people in business, sharing breaking news, meeting authors, CEOs, business people. On YouTube, people are filming videos to get more clients for their businesses. That's why we started out doing this. And it's very important that it's not just people getting paid on YouTube because they have 10,000 views, because that's incenting the wrong kind of people. That was more for the young people who wanted to do crazy videos. YouTube needs to make sure that they compensate micro-influencers. Only 130 of the most powerful people in the world are watching your channel, but yet these are the people who are going to be buying the luxury products like the Hermes perfume over here. I don't think that social media is a weapon. I think social media is a right to freedom of speech. They're trying to get rid of Alex Jones on all these sites. He's read history. He understands a lot of things that people at places like Bilderberg may not want you to know. So you can go over to his website at Infowars.com. Okay, number 10 is the importance of space. Now, we know that billionaires, there are 3 billionaires working on space. Billionaires love to talk about space, okay? I think a lot of women would prefer that these men invest in our companies here on Earth so that we can, have a better world and not have homeless people in Los Angeles and San Francisco and all these big cities, and start thinking about the importance of the women in Western countries. As the Dalai Lama said, they're going to save the world. So while space is something that we should continue to explore, there should not be 3 billionaires focused on space at the expense of everyone else. And I'm really upset with Jeff Bezos. I don't think he should continue at Amazon. He's He's now on the board, so let's see. And cyber threats are real, and countries need to do a lot to make sure that they're protected from cyber threats. But I think at the same time, we need to have that that perspective of coming together and helping invest in women-owned businesses in Western countries so that we can provide jobs for the developing world. And we will not even need to have all this, these cyber threats, because people will make money honestly and not need to hack people's computer to make money. I mean, I think a lot of people do it out of desperation, probably in other countries. So we really need to talk about how can we use women to come together, women leaders, especially the ones over a certain age, like over 45, who have a lot of wisdom, are more oriented towards people in relationships. So you need to have that yin yang of leadership going at all times. There are a few key highlights of people attending Bilderberg, especially women this year, that I want to go over. The editor-in-chief of The Economist. I'm going to go down to a woman named Sylvia Saras. She calls herself an academic techie on her own homepage. She had worked for Microsoft, so that's why I bring her up now, but she's also an investor now on boards. More of an entrepreneurial person who's into investment. She calls herself working on large-scale digital transformation. So I would like to talk to Sylvia and find out more about that. As a female-owned company looking for investors, I'm interested in having more of the truth getting out about what's really going on in the world and how we can help women in leadership. So I'd love to talk to her about that. I've only seen one woman, Sonia Yost, the CEO of Dex Lachem, talk on YouTube about what's happening at Bilderberg. And I'm so happy she did open up, because she's a woman of the generation where she believes the truth should get out. Some of the usual suspects from academia, not to be left out even though his name is a W and at the end of the list, Martin Wolf of the Financial Times. If any of you want to head over to angel.co, you can look at my multimedia business plan. The price list member. So for my Financial Times viewers, I'm sure you want to go over to patreon.com or just Google Sandra Rupp Patreon, find my page, and make that monthly donation. We could also have Bilderberg right here in Naples, Florida. I'm Sandra Rupp. Please subscribe and stay tuned.